Good morning. It's been a while. I'm author Joseph Flansb, author of Jester and Brian O'Clark's Last Prank. I'll read from this one on another day. For now, Chapter 5 of the Jester an adventure, life, faith, and love. Go by the subtitles, there's more than one of these. True to her word, the sorceress used her powers on Joseph. She should make him wear whatever she wanted him to wear, from dresses to bodysuits, variations of either. She would conjure large numbers of pies for people to throw, though mostly her guards were the ones that would do so. She would conjure up buckets of slime of various types, then have them dumped over him. She would conjure huge vats of goo of various natures, from caramel-like stuffs to things like molasses, and throw him in. She would conjure up huge cakes, giant pies, or mud pits, then personally wrestle him down, sometimes stripping him naked. Though most times he was such a mess that onlookers couldn't tell. For 13 hours a day, she would do these to him to try to wear him down. She still had dominion and had a dominion and to run, and had dominion to run the rest of the day. Yeah. Also true to her, she took him all around her dominion to different villages, towns, and cities for demonstrations. Joseph endured with the most excellent humility. This was puzzling to the sorceress, but yet she persisted in her assault on him. At the beginning of the third week, the sorceress and her cohort brought him to a large town at the far southern border of the northern kingdom. This town is simply known as Langton. It was a kind of neutral point between the two kingdoms. This was also a heavy trading post, an area favored with a navigable river and access to sea some 50 miles away. Any from outside either kingdom would do business there. There was also a high level of resistance to the sorceress and her authority. The sorceress came here merely for a demonstration purpose, because she knew that the observers from the northern kingdom would be there. She was right, too. But Princess Rose came along with a couple of her guards and the Smith boys, Jim and Adam, to see how the show worked and to see Joseph. They were disguised as merchant traders. She was worried about Joseph and had only heard a few rumors of what was going on to him in his captivity. This was her chance to see him, and she took it. Now, in the main square of Langton, there was a large crowd gathered to watch the display that had grown in popularity in its journey. The sorceress and her cohort came into the courtyard of the area and prepared them for on the southern kingdom side of the square. She had Joseph brought in using her magic to materialize him in their presence. Rose took a position as close to the show as possible and watched as the sorceress, with waves of her hand, with Joseph in a tight green dress with a built-in corset and a swirling puff of green smoke. Rose could obviously see he was in discomfort, but she watched silently. But she watched silently. The whole of the show that unfolded before her. As the wrestling part of the show was about to come to an end, Rose almost lost control as her lover was nearly being raped by this wicked lady. When Joseph was thrown out of the ring by the sorceress, he landed just in front of Rose. She quietly spoke to Joseph. "Are you okay?" He looked up at her and smiled, and at, smiled at her as their eyes met. He said, he said to her, "Doesn't she look tired?" As the guards picked him up to throw him back into the ring, he said quietly to Rose, "The time is almost right. Pray and make ready." She nodded in understanding. When the show had ended, Rose noticed that the sorceress did seem tired, drained in some way, though it was barely perceived by almost everyone there. Rose came back to the Smith boys and told them what was said to her. They in turn told others, and their trading partners who told others. Rose wanted to find out more about her love's condition, so she found out where the sorceress and her cohort were staying in the town. It was a large house on the southern skirts of the town, a a small courtyard with a large garden. The structure was mostly a ranch style, with only one section of 2 stories. The second floor mainly bedrooms and a balcony that faced the river. The moon was nearly full. So Rose snuck off with the Smith boys in the moonlight, using the shadows as cover to find a way to find out what they could about this enemy of theirs. They snuck up to the house and, with quick glances in through the windows, found out who was there, who was in the rooms, and what was going on. The ground floor was mostly guards and slave servants doing what people do over their nights at home, talking, telling stories, mild drinking, and even light games. As Rose made her way around the house, she came underneath the balcony of the main bedroom. She was in a perfect shadow when she came, uh, when she heard the balcony doors open above her. She could only hear someone who was not very happy with something, so she listened intensely. The sorceress stepped out onto the balcony with the head of her guards. "My lady, you are not well. Something is happening to you," he said with concern. She sternly replied, "I am fine. I don't need you to tell me about me." "Very well, my lady. But what about this Jester Joseph you have been torturing? He isn't going to break. He has endured everything you have done to him. He just takes it like a rock." The sorceress looked at him with a cold stare, then replied, "My friend, have you been with me for so long and not understand my full power? Yes, I have done everything you have seen me do, but there is more, so much more." The head guard stated, "I will follow and do whatever you say. But to point out a fact, I have never seen anyone resist you in this degree. Other than kill him, what is there to do to him?" The sorceress smiled evilly and said, "Have you ever heard of the skin of evil charm?" "Only bits of what I've heard of them. It's very powerful and very dangerous," he answered. She explained, "It is like this. In the kingdom of Og, in the temple of Astroth, that is where I started, there is a special pool where the spell can be enacted, this curse and charm. We must go there tomorrow. Once there, I must use this darkest of magic. There is, however, a catch." The guard looked fascinated at what was being explained. "Yes, go on," he said. She resumed, "For 3 days and nights, he and I will both be vulnerable. If he should experience an act of true love during that time, the spell will not only be broken, but I will be mortal for a short time. I will be made weak. If that happens, even you and Even you even you could be destroyed by the shock of the recoil of the spell. If you are wondering, that is why I'm telling you this. I want you to know, if you are truly willing to go this far with me, the cost of the magic is really high. Are you willing? The head of the guard did his best salute. Yes, for you, my queen. They were they were proceeding inside when the Smiths caught up to Rose below the balcony. She turned to shush them, but one of them accidentally bumped the stack of wood. The stack tipped over with a small crash, like the stack of wood makes. Oops, he said. Rose stood Rose stood quickly and whispered, "Let's get out of here. Let's get out of here. Let's get out of here." The sorceress heard the noise, and so did all that were in that end of the house. The head guard set the alarm to get the guards out and on the case. Rose and the Smiths made through the shadows of the trees just as the sorceress came back to the balcony. She could have used magic, but didn't because she didn't have a clear shot at her target. Being in a weakened state, she didn't have the energy to waste. So she shouted to the guards, "They're on this side of the house, heading toward the river." Rose and the Smiths ran like they'd never ran before, as before the guards began to pursue. Rose prayed that they would escape and be given the speed of angels. As they ran, it seemed like they were flying. Though it was dark on the path, the three made it to the river without so much as a trip on a tree root. The guards in pursuit were having a far more difficult time, tripping on the things in the ground, running in the low branches, and it slowed them enough so that Rose was able to think for a moment. When they got to the river, she wasn't able to swim very fast, but she did grab uh, a bunch of weeds and down to tree branches and jumped into the river. The Smith boys were strong swimmers. They jumped in and swam for it. By the time the guards made it to the edge of the river, they could only see the Smith boys making a good swim away. Already out of range, even though there was a good moon to see out by. The guards and the guard in charge just of the run just stopped and said, "Damn, they got away." The Smiths made into town and up onto deck before Rose caught up with them, just by floating in. The older brother Jim addressed her. "I didn't think you'd make it." He laughed level. He spoke up. "Well, I did. Now, give me a hand up, will you?" They helped her out of the water and laughed for a moment. The younger brother, Adam, laughed. "Oh, that was intense." So Rose quickly took charge. "You've got to get back to our group, then get back to the capital. Then we have to come up with a plan to save Joseph." Even though she was wet and dirty, she still commanded authority. "Yes, madam," was the response. Meanwhile, back at the house, the lead guard that had chased the intruders reported to the sorceress that they were unable to identify who it was and that the intruders had gotten away. She was furious and conjured Joseph into the room with a puff of greenish smoke. She spoke to Joseph. "I want you to see something." Waving her hand, her staff suddenly appeared. Then she pointed at the guard who had failed her. The green glow that was well associated with the power came forth. The guard pleaded for his life, but it was no avail. In an instant, she struck him with the energy and took his life force, absorbing it back into herself. She felt a little better physically, not much. Then she spoke to Joseph. I could do this to you, my man. Don't think I can't. So why don't you? He replied. Simple. You are a key to my greater plan. If I didn't measure out long term worth of people, I wouldn't be where I am now. Joseph spoke again. So, what, in God's name, do you want with me? And what do you want from me this time? Let me go to witness to you? The sorcerers seemed perturbed by the name of God, but answered him, I want you to be a weapon of mine to do as I tell you, to serve the forces of darkness that I serve, to be mine to do with as I wish, not just body, but mind and soul too. You can't force people to live that way, my lady. Going dark is a choice, and not one I'm going to make for you, for you are a mere mortal, he replied. She walked up and grabbed his face. Brave words, little man. Tomorrow we will see how strong you are when we arrive at my native kingdom of Og, in the temple to great goddess Ashtaroth. I will make oh, you will become mine. She summoned her guard. Yes, my queen. She answered him. We leave for Og in the morning. Prepare your men. Also, bring 33 people to be witnesses of the day. I don't care where you get them, he responded in quick order. But it will be done. So the next morning, as the sun was rising, the sorceress' guards quickly and violently rounded up the required number of people for the from the residences of Lionton. But unlike other roundups they had done, this one had resistance. Several groups had banded together and fought back, some killing the loyal guard. Those sorceresses' guard did get what they were ordered. The cost was higher than anticipated. They led their captives into the house where the sorceress was waiting outside with Joseph, bound at her side next to her couch. The head guard addressed her. My queen, the witnesses you required are here. She looked at them like they were cattle and responded, Very good. He added, We took casualties when we rounded them up. This population isn't afraid of us and may come after us. Og is a week's ride in good conditions. How are we going to get there from this place? The sorceress smiled slyly. We get out of here like this. Then, with a circular pattern of wave of her staff, a huge vortex of orange powder energy appeared around the cohort. In a sudden flash, they were all gone from that place, and were suddenly in Og at the entrance of the temple. The end of chapter 5. We might have another take on these at some point. I intend to do more readings. But for now, enjoy. Make the best of what you can with what you got. Rehearsals are essential, And remember, these are for sale. ISBN numbers are real. That's you get them. Next, I will do a reading from my newest book, Just the Brand of Corp's last prank. Maybe in a little while. Okay? Good one. And